Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Town of Manlius Planning Board for June 24th, 2024. We are in person and online hybrid for the meeting. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of our minutes from our June 10th, 2024 meeting. I did have just one thing I forgot to tell you ahead of time. It's on the second page, just where we talk about the public hearings on July 8th, just a couple of the dates. One is like 20, two different, and then just if you want to, the year isn't on the A and S and Y. Okay. Sorry, I meant to tell you earlier, I forgot.
No, that's fine.
Okay, does anyone else have anything on the minutes, or I'll take a motion to?
I'll make a motion to approve based with the changes that Valerie made. Second.
Okay. Motion made by Rich, second by Arnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The minutes from June 10th, 2024 are approved. The next item on our agenda is for the Aaron Evans Inn. It's for a at 7206 East Genesee Street, Fayetteville, special use permit renewal at the same address. This is in the CA zone, tax map number 092.06-04.1. Do we have anybody here on behalf of the applicant? Yes.
Jason Thomas, provider here at
And does the board have anything? Nothing has really changed. This is a special use permit renewal for the outside deck.
Get a comment, letter.
Yes.
So, Doug, you had the opportunity to go out to the site.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
Oh, you did as well.
I think it looks great out there, right? I think the one. No, Jason, if you could give us just like an updated site plan, 'cause it looks like the fence and some of the landscaping and stuff like that in from the original.
Yeah, the
application.
fence, that's all mapled out on the backside of us.
Okay.
And I know, Mr. Shep over here is, I believe, Shep. There was an accident in the lot and he, wrote a letter, I contacted the town about it, and they said just a kind of a trust. So if there's any kind of lighting issue or he had suggested like yield signs in the parking lot. I don't know if that's necessary. It's the first accident that we've had with two moving vehicles. The individual that hit him is kind of a problem customer. So we paid after fire. He tends to come late and always rushing, knowing that we're like, if we stop service at 9, he'll be screaming into the parking lot. Whether he's consumed alcohol or not prior to coming, a lot of times have refused him service because of these issues. And so he's always flying to get in before we close. And apparently this night he came to the backside of the restaurant, was coming down where we have that berm that's surrounded with a small wall. And I didn't see the accident, but I think Mr. Shep was pulling out and Mr. Bowman came and hit him, nose to nose at fault. The lighting, we do have a number of lights back there. I don't know if it's enough or should be more. We do have housing at Maple Downs next to us, so too much light would be an issue for the residents there. So, I don't know how we determine that, whether you come out at night and view the property, or whether there is, a yield put up or something to that effect.
mean, maybe that's something we could do, Jamie, with the codes officer.
We'll have the codes officer just go out and take a look.
Yeah.
Before the next meeting,
Okay.
and just give us
Yeah.
an evaluation.
And I think, so I might have an updated survey, is that, would that be good for you guys?
Yeah, that'd be great, yeah, I mean, that'd be a place to start, right, so we can take a look and see what needs to be on that site plan.
Okay.
Sure. Everything's up to date.
It would be nice to know what was in the site plan that was approved and what's there now. I mean, it's been years since we approved the site plan, so it would be nice to at least look at that to determine whether or not it makes sense to do something with the site plan. I'm not saying that that has anything to do with the special use permit, but it should have something to do with it.
Yeah, I'm not, like, the fence is maple bound, so I don't know, you know, I think the last time we did our renewal, there was, you know, talking about the whole site. And, you know, more of the, I think actually Sandy Chef, so I don't know if there's a chef that's pretty here or something, but she brought up, I think she was on the board, brought up the issue with the whole site, the parking lot. But again, that was all done by Maple Downs, way back when Maple Downs was constructed, so they kind of relocked that whole back and, you know, paved it, you know, that was how they're doing. But
Was that on their property or yours?
the fence, I believe, is on their property.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I think it's we're on the border,
Mhm.
but they actually,
But they're the ones who constructed
they
it.
just redid it all, actually, they just put up a whole new fence. So they,
But I think your parking lot was gravel at one point,
it was gravel way back.
and now it's paved. And I'm not sure the timing of when the site plan was approved and what's changed since then, but it needs a look.
Okay,
We can work with you on that, Jason.
I'm sorry.
We can work with you.
Okay, great.
Has anything changed with the deck? That this.
Nothing's changed with that.
It was there since the last site plan.
Since,
the last
since,
special.
I think it was, you know, a solid 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think the last couple of times Jason was in, right? The last time was the fire pit area, right? And then before that, it was the deck.
Or the porch, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might have been
yes, I,
10, 12 years ago.
yeah,
I would say, I believe.
it's every 5 years you have to renew. So,
7.
every 7, so this is that's what 14.
So, you know, we're just, there's no big rush, right? We're just gonna take a look at the site plan, look at the prior, special use permits, kind of make sure it's copacetic and that there's no changes. And, you know, we can discuss, if, you know, after the codes officer takes a look at the place in the dark, to make sure the lighting's okay.
Yeah.
And then we can be guided accordingly.
What is the, do you have the current site plan on record to see what the
Yes.
plan is? Is that kind of compare,
Yes.
or bring a survey
We
down?
certainly,
and look it over?
we certainly should have it, but in the meantime, if you wanna bring in and send us that survey, that'd be great.
Sounds good.
To make sure that we have everything.
Alright, so we'll put that on, table it to the next meeting. Okay. Alright, thank you. The next item on the agenda is for Twin Ponds Housing. This is at 5440 North Burdick Street, Fayetteville. This is the fourth presentation. This is for the planned unit development, PUD. Tax map number 086.-02-06.1. So,
Thank you. Good evening. Brian Bouchard with CHA. We're the project engineer working on behalf of the applicant Charlie Brewer. Jim Fahey is the project architect who's also online with us. So at the last meeting, we talked about some site plan updates, kind of specific to some of the more finer details of the project. So we did submit those a few weeks ago for the board to review. I'll just highlight high level what we addressed so that we can make sure that we address them to your satisfaction and let's see if there's any outstanding questions or comments that you might have. So At the last meeting, we did talk about building architecture, both coloring and sort of the fenestration of the building, the ins and outs, if you will, or relief of the building. So you wouldn't notice it on the site plan, but we did take the actual design footprint and make sure that that is accurate on the building so that we can accommodate some of the additional space that we had within those bump outs of the building for our landscape plans. And then same with the clubhouse. There was an expansion to the fitness area where there's a portion of the covered entryway on the side of the building. So the clubhouse footprint has also been corrected, which is kind of a finer detail that you might not notice. The dog park, so we placed the dog park at the end of the main entrance driveway. It's kind of in an appropriate spot in terms of kind of being set off to the side of the project, but still within an active use area. We also added to the dog park area, the details that were requested. So this is about 1,500 square feet. It's an enclosed fenced area as we talked about. It's gonna be a black vinyl coated chain link fence. We have the layout such as if you've been to a dog park, there's sort of a double gated entry so that you can walk your dog in on the leash, close the door, and then go through the second gate so that the dogs that are in the park don't run out of the dog park. And we also include a couple example pictures of the dog park area. Within the actual enclosed fenced area, there's also a few benches and places for the doggy parents to sit within the fence. So same thing with the playground area. The playground is kind of just directly adjacent to the parking lot of the clubhouse. We included about 5,000 square feet. Again, it's surrounded by a black vinyl coated chain link fence. We also put a couple of shade trees on the southerly side of that playground so that there's some shade within the playground area itself. And then included some of the specs for the picnic tables that would be kind of surrounding the playset. The playset would be obviously something that's purchased by the vendor, but you can see in there's a playset with an allotted mulch area for protection, and then outside of that, some grass area that's within the fence as well. We talked about pedestrian easements, so there's 2 easements that are now shown on the plan that the applicant is willing to provide for town pedestrian access. One of which is the pedestrian easement that goes along our road frontage along North Burdick Street. There have been some earlier discussions about the need for sidewalks, for instance, from the canal trail down North Burdick to town center. And that our project should be accommodating the need for that in the future if the town was able to apply for grant funding or some type of multimodal grant for pedestrian access. We've allocated enough space to allow for installation of a sidewalk along North Burdick. And then the other one was right along the gravel access road. We don't own a lot of the property that is between sort of the gravel access road at the ponds and then the existing trail that's on the other side of Limestone Creek. But if there was ever a need to connect the existing trail at Limestone Creek to the pedestrian easements on our side, we've accommodated that as well with a 5-foot easement along the gravel access road.
Next question.
Sure.
The access road that you're talking about that goes across other people's property.
Yeah.
Jamie, have you seen the easement document?
It is filed and we can send a copy of that.
Okay.
Also, too.
Let me look and see if it's in, around my emails. Okay.
So you'll recall that the seller of the piece of property that this project resides upon that Charlie owns was, and is still, I think, the current owner of that southerly piece. So as part of that transaction later on, we were able to negotiate the right of access for emergency access to there, which is the same limits that are shown on our plan.
And it's been filed.
Correct, yep. In the alignment of it, we
This
did,
file when closed, so.
Yep.
Charlie, this file when closed, so January
Okay.
26th.
and we may have talked about this very early on, but the alignment of that emergency access lines up with the intersection that would be contemplated as part of some type of development out of that south parcel. So that it would need to be relocated. So all the lot lines that were adjusted for the subdivision, we follow that same contemplated path of a roadway coming in off of North Burdick. again, with the traffic improvements, we have shown on the plan now the crosswalk that would be associated with the intersection there. So being able to get pedestrians across the street at that new signal head that we'll be adding a fourth leg to, along with the restriping that was accounted for within the traffic impact study to restripe the turn lanes in and out of the site as we start to get pedestrians in the striping plan down there. Minor detail, but in the area of the playground, we used to have a component of our stormwater management system. This is the underground chambers that treat and manage the stormwater. We shifted that over so that it is underneath the parking lot of the clubhouse, so that we have ample ability to place things like fence posts and playground equipment foundations within the flat green space that we have adjacent to that parking lot. Didn't change any of the calculations. It was just a translation to shift it over out of that green space. We had previously shown riprap, a typical stone cobble riprap for some of the swales throughout the project. And you'll notice in this plan set, we have eliminated all riprap. Any swales are now vegetated swales with stabilization fabric and erosion control. And then just at the ends where the pipe actually outlets, we have called out on the landscape plans to have a rounded river stone at the pipe end. So trying to eliminate the long massing of otherwise, quarry or granite stones, changing those to vegetated swales. And then just at the end where we do need some protection, calling that out as a rounded river stone that looks more natural. Within the rest of the slope stabilization areas, there was comments to provide some different planting mixes there to kind of revegetate that in a natural state. So you'll notice that we still do have the stabilization fabric there, and we have called out a native upland wildlife mix. So this mix is inclusive of different tall grasses, bunch grasses, and then some wildflowers that are all native to New York State. We also added to the landscape plans the detailed planting schedule and all the quantities. So there's sort of these different areas within the project, either your perennial plantings, the tree plantings. We also have very specific plantings for our bioretention areas. We have building facade plantings. So these are the foundation plantings up along the building. And then the wildflower seed mix that I did just talk about as well. So we have both the planting schedule, the planting plan, and the quantities on the landscape plans. One of the last sheets, 704, we also added some graphics of sort of the various site furnishings and some specs for those. So again, I mentioned it before, style generically of the picnic tables and a manufacturer of them, the benches, which are kind of wood seating benches with metal legs, and then things like the pavilion being a wood frame pavilion, all on the landscape plan now as well. Some things, I don't think we talked about this, but it was a detail that we added. Some of the areas where the driveway comes in and the radiuses that come in, and then also the parking areas that face the lake, we did add a timber guide rail system. So not like a W-beam guide rail that you would see that would be metal, but something more like a park setting where 8x8 posts with 2x12s attached to it. This isn't necessarily to, protect you from crashing through it. A lot of it's on the opposite side of the sidewalk, so it kind of serves both functions like you would expect in like a park setting to have both pedestrians and vehicles keeping away from the slopes. All of the slopes do is we looked at kind of the slope restoration. They're not necessarily steep slopes, they are big slopes, but they were all graded at 3-on-1. So between the wildflower mixes, the native plantings, and the erosion control blankets, 3-on-1 slope is not necessarily mobile, but it's also not steep in a way that it's, the washout and the erosion control issues that you would get with steeper slopes there. And the other detail that we added, I don't know if it was specifically requested by the board, but the emergency access gate. So having a gate that could be open and closed by the fire department, but still deter people using the, facilities to not try and drive their car down to the peninsula or something like that. So having a gate that's appropriate for emergency access, we also added that detail. And I think that kind of summarizes what the site plans were. I don't know if you want Jim to go through the architecture, or maybe we just ask the board for questions and see if there's anything, that I might miss.
Jim, can you hear us?
Like 3 times in response, so I don't know if he's.
So maybe I'll just go for him. You know, essentially, we had shown you different color palettes, different materials, different textures.
Just that on mute.
Figure out how to unmute, otherwise I'll keep going. Obviously, the renderings in terms of the perspective views and those things are largely the same as what you saw in all 3 of those. We've just clarified that the chosen color palette, material, and penetrations of the building are what was submitted in the most recent set.
So we updated the clubhouse to match.
House is matching, some of the other details you can see with sort of the landscaping, everything have jived with our site plans. We share our latest model with the architect, and that allowed them to accurately depict sort of those renderings so that you guys have the final package, not the palette of choices that we were discussing at the last few meetings.
And then we provided true architectural renderings for the mixed use that really hasn't changed since we looked at it.
I thought about. About that, or get it done or have it done or where that's.
So we do have a jurisdictional delineation,
Jurisdictional determination.
thank you, from Army Corps. So that was done in 2022. But now with DC, we have to go through the process to work very much within their buffer, which is a buffer.
And there's permits,
Yeah, those are fairly simple. So that's this week's task.
And sort of procedurally, that is triggered when we do file our NOI with the DEC, the departments comment on it, state what's required, whether it's our archaeological studies and clearances from SHPO versus the stormwater agency and any land disturbance that has to do with the necessary permitting needs for wetlands. But that'll certainly be part of the process. Once we get past sort of the site plan approval and can tackle permitting, there's both the DOT permitting and DEC permitting that would be needed before we can file our NOI.
and I think what Jamie, that's.
One for information, this might be 22 wetlands that we're on.
North Pond's wetland, South Pond is not.
Right, but in your long EAF and in the DEC letter, they specifically mentioned SY 22, setback, and is that the North Pond where your property bumps up to it? I could not, on the mapping system, could not seem to find this designation, so
I can try
I
and
would just want to know what.
I believe it is just from, I mean, like Charlie's saying, without getting into the weeds and past endeavors on this site. North Pond is jurisdictional, and the South Pond is not.
The North Pond's the maps, DC, Christmas.
So we, that's just, your long identifies SYE 22
Yeah.
as a wetland. I'm just trying to confirm. In fact, it's
Yeah.
actually North
Well,
Pond.
Brian probably had the benefit of our delineation report, so there was a delineation report that was done in 2022. So there is a wetland that was in that report that's kind of right in this low area. But then we got the non-jurisdictional letter from Army Corps.
I'm fine on the South Pond. I think,
Yeah.
one, you have total ownership, and that seems to create some, that doesn't otherwise exist. I found the DEC language in this letter pretty obstructionist, let's say, in terms of dealing with SYE 22. So my concern was tonight, would you need to make any adjustments to what you've laid out in the north building, or is that to be determined, or is really language sound worse than what operationally happens when you negotiate through this with DEC?
so it certainly would be a permitting process, and the buffer is, I don't wanna say a simpler process, but it's a different process than actual mitigation to alter a wetland, right? A lot of the things that you look at when you do disturb into a buffer area is that you are not negatively impacting the resource itself, to which the buffer is a buffer, right?
I'm sure there's a great elevation
Right.
change, I assume it's pretty
It is, it's
Yeah.
15 or 20 feet, and then so beyond that, we are also not allowing any of our runoff to spill directly into the wetland. We do quite the opposite, where there are areas now of the gravel remnants and access roads and stone piles that kind of just run off into either Limestone Creek or the North Pond, whereas the new construction will collect all of that, divert it south to the South Pond. So there's a permitting, explanation to all of this that we'll have to go
So
through.
you're familiar with the letter, you
Correct.
understand the language, you kind of see this as a doable event without material changes to your current layout?
Correct.
Okay.
Ryan, first of all, thank you for a complete set of drawings. It's very much appreciated. Second question, is Meadowbrook limestone able to handle a 306 unit contribution?
Yes, we have a capacity assurance letter from Ottawa, who's the owner of the Interceptor Sewer, yes.
And the last question was on your trees. I noticed that something like 13 of them were evergreens and all the rest were deciduous. Is that a balance that you think makes a lot of sense in this part of the world?
I have to say yes, because of our landscape architects that obviously look at sort of the diversity of the species that are provided, not only for being native, but also where they're placed. View shed, not having evergreens maybe in front of the pond areas and things like that. So where they place them are probably more screening. So I would say yes. I think in other projects where you're maybe bordering residential neighborhoods, you would have a more dense evergreen, evergreen row, whereas we have a little bit more flexibility to provide a bigger mix of a lot of different deciduous and then perhaps some evergreens, but I can get a more pointed answer for you from our landscape architects, but I believe it was purposeful, yes.
This is really obscure, let's say, but I've been up to the Solo Lake Shore apartment project. One of the curious things about it, at least to me, is the top floor balconies have a finished ceiling and the floors below do not. Is that intentional or is that?
We will be adding, we're adding shortly.
Okay.
It was intentional, but when we built the first one, we said we had to do something about it. Yeah, especially there with the bugs and everything, they get up into nooks and crannies.
That is something I'd rather not happen on this project.
Understood. Yeah, we're gonna fix on that and that won't happen here. Did you like the project? Did you like the project? Okay.
I prefer the spacing on this one. Up there, you've got a lot of work out of the site. So with the fact you're on the lake, is certainly an attribute, which another minor question, a relative looked at this and said, no swimming pool, no. But you get to swim in the lake.
Yeah.
Can you swim in the pond?
That's, the intention is to allow people to swim in the pond.
So any liability and all that worked out, New York State, this infamous thing for contention on this sort of situation, fine. Okay. Strikes me as a reasonable thing, but I'm just not sure in this day and age that's legally doable.
It is interesting how a lot of the water bodies this size around here, you would find to be stagnant and muddy and probably not want to be in, whether you're swimming or not, but just kayaking or paddling or paddle boards and things people do. It's literally bottom of it. It's perfectly clear, perfectly clear water. Yeah.
Really have been algae growth there.
I know we talked about this a little bit just before, but just so the rest of the board hears and everything, that for final plans, we just need the proposed language to drop off.
We will remove all indication of proposed and assume that it's there already as far as our construction project goes. And part of that, as I explained to Valerie, was the issue is sometimes that there's existing infrastructure that's left versus proposed, but this is a little bit redundant in that we say proposed, and if it's not allowed to be on the plans, we will reprint them with any other comments that you want prior to, potentially one of the July meetings, if it's just a touch point to be here with a final set of plans that we can all say are good to move forward with the public hearing that I know we have to schedule for the day after.
comments from the board?
I do wanna say that I did find easement, but January eighth, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, 6 and no's.
That's not fair.
Yeah. I was gonna tell you that it was a while.
But I actually had seen that, I think when it was being first drafted, when they were first doing this subdivision, we had worked on those accesses.
Yeah, I like the trails, obviously by it, and then that, I think that gate will be.
So again, to try and promote the use by pedestrians and strollers and people who may not want to use the Black Diamond Trail, but to still keep people with, cars from thinking that they're
Yeah,
available to use it, so.
right.
So we did look at alternate locations for the dog park area, but just with grades and everything. I know that we were looking kind of in this area, but, so that's why we came up with this area. It's
Yeah,
kind of a little bit more off the beat path.
right.
Jamie, kind of just hop on the cuff, but the letter that came back from DEC, should we get Charlie and Brian just address that? Right?
Yeah.
I don't, to Don's point, I mean, I don't see any issues with this location. I think we kind of worked around all the issues. It's a little strange to get that type of letter. You're used to that.
Lately,
Yeah.
lately, we were talking about that.
Yeah, we were just talking about that, yeah.
Very
We've seen
lately,
it several-
there were a lot of
Anything goes. I would like to say thank you for paying such close attention to all the comments and, really listening to everything that we had to say. And I think that you did a great job addressing everything. I only have one further comment, and that's about the seed mix on the, entry slope there. And I actually have a copy of their catalog, because I expect their stuff too. And I was looking it up, and they kind of changed the way they do stuff too, and that they want to work with you on each project versus just like you going in and looking at the seed mixes and then add the specific things in there. And, the 123, the native upland wildlife and forage, they've also got some steep slopes and disturbed things, disturbed area mixes that work really well because you're left with a fairly infertile soil once you take off what we get on the top there. And so they might be able to make you a mix that combines the best of those things, where you'll get the consistent stability that can flourish in the nutrient poor soil, which you'll end up with, but also combine the best of the stuff from the wildlife.
Of course.
Okay.
Yes, I understand. Should I have it revised on the plans, or is this a suggestion or a requirement? Because I think that may be more of a collaboration with the supplier.
Yeah, and they'll, you show them the plan and tell them what you're looking for. I just think that working in some of the slope stabilization plants would be really helpful, because then you don't have to.
And you said that there was another specific mix.
They have one called, native steep slope mix with annual ryegrass, like you might not want the rye. You know what I mean? And that's ERNMX 181. But they've got a list of like 10 here for disturbed sites and steep slopes. So it could be,
Telling them where we are in location and also what our slope is to have them.
yeah, they're
Provide a
really easy
mix.
to work with, and I don't, it's not like it triples the price of it or anything, because they blend them all for like, project.
I'll call them, and if there's a way to memorialize that on the plan somehow, or at
You'll
least when
just
we
get
come
it.
back, I can say, hey, this is kind of what we talked to them about, and they're willing to do
Yeah.
something, yeah.
They'll just give you the spec information.
Yep.
And then list all those species and percentages.
Sure.
But, if, I think that, everyone will be very pleased with what they come up with.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Just one other thing, so last time when you guys came in and we had that proposed drive-through restaurant, drive-through establishment on the, along North Burdick. we're just wondering what, if any, are your plans for that area. So if I'm looking at, the overall layout plan, C100.
Yeah, I mean,
And so that part of the property, and then the part south, just south of that, do you have any current or future plans in those two areas?
no,
So we're
But
saying
I
we-
know,
right,
do you mean never, or?
Never, we don't currently have plans for it, and we don't currently expect to really try to develop it. It's just, we got enough on the plan.
Okay, because the PUD plan does say that it can be developed, it can be constructed in phases, but it doesn't say it's gonna be.
Yeah, but it also says if we have a site plan approval, then we have to hold for a building permit within 18 months. Right, something like
Right.
that, so if I don't have a user.
For another site plan.
it would be more prudent to 5 or 10 years from now, come back and discuss an amendment with specific knowledge of who's using it and what, rather than us trying to fictitiously create something to be shown on a map that would then have to be constructed by the time we really started with the project. But the answer is it's difficult to develop. It really can't cater to a lot of different people. We created a sketch to kind of see what could be possible there. The area to the south of the driveway really doesn't support anything. So, and then the area to the north is difficult because it's very narrow, to be honest with you, so.
So the plan right now then is to, I don't know what it looks like, I haven't looked at it. Is it going to be graded, seeded, fenced?
Correct, grass lawn.
Is that what's shown?
Yeah, there's a portion on the hard corner that's taken up by the monument sign now, but the rest of it would be graded grass lawn.
Only the stuff that would be disturbed by the course of the construction of what's approved, though, you're not gonna like clear it and rub it and seed it, right?
Right now, we don't plan to, no.
Because that would have to be shown.
I guess that I guess the question then for the board is, what do you want to do?
That's an interesting question, because there's lots of nasty invasive species, that have become weeds and stuff in there, but you go in and disturb it just to pretty it up, and you end up unleashing all of the seed bank of invasive, noxious weeds that are in there, and you have to pick which is worse, right? Pre and mowing.
Listen, I just saying it's right.
Yeah,
Don't be obnoxious, but if there is some other way that you want that plan to look other than the way it looks right now, it needs to be on this plan, so that's all.
Right, so that's the part that everybody's gonna see driving by and coming in, so other than the monument sign, the road and the traffic light. Is there anything else our board would like to see there?
Are you looking for a tenant or user for that area? Is that what it is?
Yeah, just the amount of commercial space in the mixed use building is already quite a bit. It's a lot more than we anticipated, This process usually, so just to get that filled up, I think it's gonna be feed itself.
Totally understand.
I mean, with the ones in the
Right,
trees
right,
kind
yeah,
of there.
talking about
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah.
you know,
We're not gonna stop, it's just, I think, to
Yeah.
it today.
So the question is really whether it should be cleared and reestablished, or whether it should be
Part
left.
of this, like, do we even want to say,
Yeah.
monument sign or?
Other than landscaping.
Could you go back to the, is that the landscaping, so there will be the tree, sorry, it's a little hard to see, and my computer's not really.
Yeah, I mean, we have disturbance that needs to be made for the driveway to take the turn. And
Yeah.
we planted street trees along the sidewalk and the snow shelf, but there's a larger area that there's.
How far back does the grading go? I'm assuming the end of the grading is the edge of the disturbance.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we can look at the Google.
It fills in this, you see where the,
Stop sharing the screen before I can.
you see where the current slopes are, so whatever would grade that to level, and then whatever would be between there and the road could be left.
I'm just wondering, Charlie, if we could see the street, like the street view from Google Maps, just to kind of look,
It's thick.
for all of us to look together. Yeah.
Define a maintained area.
So,
Like, I guess, do we want it to be like, oh, it's a
Some
bit,
stretch
maybe
along
a sign,
the road that was
I
clean
want it
and
to be
neat,
more
and that's the
manicured,
surface force.
have like a more substantial.
So, something that is a really nice way to handle, in my opinion, situations like this, when you have a brushy, wooded, thick area, and you're coming in with new construction and disturbance like that, is to kind of have a transition. Where you have your undisturbed area, and then you have like a strip where you put in a few, it's a planting strip of what's, mid-height native shrubs with a seed mix underneath that then grows up with, another earth mix even would be good. And then you have your lawn. So you have a step down effect from your undisturbed wooded area. They don't have to clean it out, they don't have to whatever. Then you have, say, 15 feet or 10 feet or something, where you have some native shrubs mixed in to kind of step down from the woods to a transition strip to the north lawn.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
your alley.
and you're saying from the new driveway, sidewalk, kind of this buffer area, and then leave what's between there and the street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that would happen outside of your grading disturbance and outside of any view sheds or site distance things that you're working around anyway.
So I think we want to probably talk about it kind of zone, so this is north of the access road that comes in, right? Like, so this is proposed to stay,
Yeah,
and I think it probably should stay.
yeah,
Yeah.
So then it's just treating that access area a little different, maybe. In my mind, you might want to take all this out,
I wouldn't.
you want to keep that.
It provides privacy for your client. And
Yeah.
it also enhances that sense of mystery and illusion of coming in there. And it does a lot for headlights into the retirement community of cars coming around the bend. and,
Yeah.
That's a good point.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it actually, you're right, it would be
Yeah.
kind of cool to drive in.
Yeah.
Right, right.
You opened up and then another view opened up as you come in, and it keeps cars going slower, actually, too, when they can't see where they're going. It's not a dangerous thing, but,
No, yeah,
So it's just enhancing this area around the
Yeah.
driveway.
yeah, and it could just be up wherever your grading ends, you take the first 12 or 15 feet and put in some native shrubs. I mean, you don't wanna put in things that would look like, high order, plantings, formal plantings, but they can be bare root, you can get, whips that will start from, stem cutting, like it's fairly straightforward, they just all get put in, and then you have a seed mix that you put in that buffer area, and then you come into your manicured lawn or your mowed lawn, or even if you're gonna do, if you have a lot of grading areas that, aren't gonna be reasonable to mow, and you're outside, there's usually a strip along the road that you wanna keep mowed for fire suppression.
Yeah.
But then, after that, you can come in, you could have yet another mix, where you hog it once a year,
Yeah,
and
we've done
then
that before
you'll leave
too.
it alone.
Turning Stone has a lot of that where they,
Exactly, I've done a lot of work out there too, and, that's a really nice way to handle these transition areas where you have, it really breaks down the maintenance and it provides a lot of cover for wildlife. Well,
if you go back to the aerial real quick too. Obviously, this is the proposed site plan, but the existing has sort of that gravel area, which is the current driveway that will be deconstructed and will have to be reconstructed. So there's kind of, as Charlie said, there's the area to the north of that existing gravel road. They can probably stay exactly the way it is, and then the area between that existing gravel road and our proposed road creates a smaller pocket.
Yep.
Some of which will be graded, but there will be probably 15 or 30 feet of untouched area that can be maintained and then buffered into like our new construction, so.
Yeah.
I like that.
What is the rest of the board?
it ends up looking really nice.
No, I agree, I wouldn't touch that. That wooded area, that's there now.
And so, and then if someday down the road they were to come back,
Yep, that'll be a story for another day. But right now, this will be the plan. Landscaping plan goes in there.
All right.
Or that landscaping.
So I think we'd be ready to start the date for the public hearing.
I show, I know I'm not supposed to show something I haven't submitted, but this is the direction of the monument sign.
Oh, right.
Is that an I-beam on the top?
It's concrete or,
Yep.
I think they're having it be concrete or stuff. Not metal.
Well, we would want it approved as part of this plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yes, you can mention.
Yeah, no, that was, we were planning on doing that, well, our schedule is a little different now, so we have time. But
That's going to same size now.
it would be, so it doesn't show on the picture, but it'll be that same.
This is the same, design family that you're gonna use for your wayfinding signs and
Yeah.
all that. I think it looks a little austere.
Yeah. What would you like?
Between the base and the sign, kind of
We
agree.
need preferable.
A lot of the stuff is personal taste, and I have one opinion on
Yeah.
a whole community, and it's your project, so you kind of decide.
And that's, I'm glad you said that, Eric, because that's how I look at it. I could like it or not like it, but it's their project, and if that's what they like.
Well,
I think as long as it's tied to the building. That you want, and it's
Well,
similar.
this board is supposed to look at the architecture, right? It's part of what they're doing for the PUD. It's
Yeah.
a little bit different than what we
Right.
ordinarily do. So,
I mean, is it supposed to be the same stone as the stone on the,
It's supposed to be.
and same color scheme? Rather than the color scheme of stone, yes.
My thought was to have it match the apartments, but we can
And would
certainly,
you say, yeah, see, Twin Ponds apartments, and then what about this piece? Ooh.
But we might change Twin Ponds, like we haven't gone through that exercise
Sure.
to change it as a placeholder.
Do you have a marketing?
I just think that people wanna know that there's more than.
Yeah, so they're the ones that started this, but we haven't gone, I mean, we'll go through and create a more creative name, I think.
For sure. But I think that so much of the design of things gets taken away from you because of the process. That in some ways, the sign is kind of a nice thing to get to hold on to do how you want. As long as it meets the requirements of like square footage and lighting and visual, you see it all, whatever.
Yeah.
Then I think we should get kind of out of it.
And we did say that the sign dimensions, obviously the location and landscaping is shown on the plan now, but the sign dimensions in terms of its height and width should be on the plan that you're gonna approve, I think. Or is sign permitting completely separate regardless of the PUD?
Well, I don't think the PUD had a sign requirement and size and so forth.
Boy, we better fix
Oh,
that.
there it is. Oh, all signage shall be in accordance with one.
Oh.
Okay, there we go.
There you go.
75-foot billboard.
Well, it's always.
So if we add it to the plan, is it part of the PUD approval, or should we just show you the graphics so you can have it, but it would be submitted as a compliant sign permit during construction?
We'd like to
I think it.
So put it on
the.
Yeah, I think so.
It's easier and
Well, now that we have some time, I can probably provide some options.
I think the impression that the parents talk about, that what I got is this is a little too modern for what's actually.
Yeah.
And modern.
Yeah.
Enjoy, have fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's. as Don was kind of alluding to, like, I like this project, I also prefer this project over the LoSiP.
Yeah.
So I think the sign should show that as well, I guess. If that makes any sense.
Sure does.
Okay. So if the rest of the board agrees, I would entertain a motion for a public hearing, discuss a little bit and give the public enough notice, et cetera, this, for a project of this size. And based on our meeting schedule and some administrative things, we're looking at a date for August 12th. So people agree, they can, there's a motion. Okay, motion made by David, second by Don, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Wonderful.
For a public hearing for August 12th. We will have the final plans and
So our
Signage.
intent with that, and we whispered a little bit after you left, was that because it is the 12th, we have like some wording like the proposed, and I think the seed mix thing we can resolve, let's say in the
Yeah.
next week. Can we submit what we believe to be final drawings that you would hear for the public hearing and still be here, let's say, is there still a meeting on the 22nd? It's just not going to
yes,
be
just
a
not a
public
public
hearing.
hearing.
Maybe we could still bring them and at least tell you, here's
Yeah.
the sign we put on there, here's the seed mix we put on there.
I think
I
that's.
think that was it that I had, and then scrubbing the proposed wordage off, but at least come one more time to say, hey, this is good, and we can move that forward to the public hearing.
Well, you might have some of your like branding, where you're gonna go through that process.
Try to.
Yeah, because that'll inform your fonts on your sign and your colors and all your.
I don't know what the,
I don't know, the branding stuff is some fun stuff.
It's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. For like
Wonderful.
22nd, you have stuff.
Either way, we'll submit the drawings and then we'll work with Lisa to say whether it's good or bad if we show up, but I think if we could be here, so it might be beneficial.
I was reading.
I heard your eyes.
Thank you.
I was reading.
Okay,
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
all right,
Appreciate it.
thank you guys very much. Thanks for all your time and,
Well, about
Thank you.
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah, exciting. Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda, speaking of meetings, has to do with our meeting schedule and the, so in looking at our meeting schedule coming up in the fall, now I lost my thought. Okay. So looking at our meeting schedule, in the fall for October and November, because of the way the holidays fall, there was going to only be one meeting in October and one meeting in November, and due to our high volume of agenda items and projects, I thought that might set us up for long meetings again, in October and November. So rather, what I thought would, and then December 23rd may or may not be a popular meeting to get on an agenda for. So, what I'm proposing is that we have 2 meetings in October, and change the meeting dates to October 7th and 21st, and 2 meetings in November, changing the dates to November 4th and November 18th, with no meeting on December 23rd.
We need a motion down, if we
Yes.
just go ahead.
We need a motion to change the schedule, yeah.
I'll move that we go with the proposed meeting changes.
I'll second it. I'm not that smart. So it's the first Monday in October and third.
Yes,
And the
yes,
first Monday in November and the third.
yes,
And there is the December ninth to second.
yes.
Yes, that's a
Okay,
regular
so
meeting
that-
day.
And then no meeting on the 23rd. Okay. I did second. it.
Okay, motion made by Arnie, second by Rich, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, we will adopt the new meeting schedule for 2024. Okay, all right, and we have another,
So one other matter, the newest, PUD on still Burdick.
Yeah.
Right, but it's but the far end of Burdick. We did have, a meeting with council and, a planning board member, and comments were sent, to the applicant requesting some basic information, like the survey, just, so a letter was sent saying we can comment better about this and make a recommendation to the town board if we have a survey with all the correct delineations, with more accurate information, that's an actual survey and not an overlay sort of on a site plan. And we will circulate that, or maybe everyone did see it this weekend. So
I didn't send it to everybody.
Okay.
I told to send it to everybody.
yes, so we'll go ahead and
I'll
send that
tomorrow.
to planning board, the request that went out.
And just for the record, 5912 North Burdick Street.
So currently, the town board does have this on their agenda for a public hearing. So at the next meeting, we'll see what kind of comments come back and what kind of response this board can make to that plan, if any, or if we're going to ask the town board to have another consideration of it.
I think one of the things. Is getting the fire department approval. Because I just look at that second building back there with no real access. And the inability for the fire department to turn around the vehicles to get out, especially with a 4-story building.
We did say, yeah, it is in here, fire and police department input. and potential
Okay.
effects. Yeah.
Okay,
I
thank you.
don't think in light of what we asked them for to further their plans, it's worth having them look at the plans.
Say that again?
I don't think that it's worth having those outside agencies or whatever look at the current plans because of the things that we uncovered during our discussion. I think it would be premature.
Well, with their,
Yeah.
I would probably disagree with that only because they're proposing 4-story buildings. And
6.
no, 6 was the PUD, but they only had 4-story in their plan. So
I think they already changed it.
it would be good if we got the fire department say, we can't serve 4-story buildings there.
With the access.
2-story, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
That would
That's
be
a good
part
point.
It might be,
of our
I
recommendation.
think it's worth having them take a look.
Yeah.
They might, and they, yeah, they may.
That makes
some other
sense.
things. Okay. Yeah, the public hearing for the town board is July 24th,
Yep.
a month from today.
So we have 2 more. 2 more meetings.
2 more meetings.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other business?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I motion made by Rich, second by Arnie, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting carries, meeting is adjourned.
What's the